1:18 time, and he is online. Wally Lewis, the king. Wally, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Overall, how's the health going? I need to ask you that first.
Okay. I'm getting older at a very quick rate, and picking up the flu, sharing that around with my mates. But other than that, it's okay. I do have some issues with memory, but there just seems to be so many of the guys in a similar position at the moment, and we're getting the best possible advice that we can and seeing the best doctors.
It's heartbreaking to hear, mate, because, we loved the rough and tumble and almost the unrestricted nature of the game back then. But this is now being reflected in the fact that so many of you very brave men, have been hit across the mush so many times while you're playing.
Yeah, and I think the great thing, Martin, is that most of the vast majority of the guys sort of get in contact with each other. They're not looking for sympathy. All they're looking for is the best possible advice that they can get from the medical staff, and deal with it in the best way possible. And when we talk about issues of memory loss, that's the sad thing for many of the guys, is that they have fears about losing recollection of some of the great times that they had playing footy, but quite ironically, it's the short-term memory that seems to be the issue for most of the guys. I know with mine, I get told something, and my partner Linda, I'll be talking to her, and I'll see a little bit of an unusual look on her face, and I usually say to her, "Have I already said that?" And she'll hold up four or five fingers and say, "Yeah, you've told me several times," and you get the embarrassment of it, but. Anyway, you learn to deal with it and just get on with life and enjoy what we've got. We've had an absolute ball, the time we've had on this earth, and we just want to be able to enjoy what's left.
Please, can I say, there's no embarrassment at all, man. People just absolutely love you, and I remember, clearly the time on TV, where you had that moment and talking to you about that and reading about that, and it was such a shock, such a horror at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That time on TV, if it's when I'm the same one, and apologies if it's not the same one we're talking about, where I had a seizure from epilepsy. Yeah. And that was back in about 2006 or 2007, I think that was. It was embarrassing, but in the funny sort of a way, it turned out to be the best possible thing that got me to go and see, to stop being such an ignorant cow, and seek the best possible advice. And I headed to Melbourne to get the advice, and probably panicked when I was told that I'd have a part of my brain removed in the left temporal lobe, and it was about 5 centimetres by 2 centimetres by 2.5 centimetres. And my question to the doctor was, "Am I going to be the full quid?" And yes. He actually laughed at me a little bit, and I said, "We'll see. You're laughing at me now." And he said, "No." He said, "That's the most common question I get asked. There are fears for your long-term health and well-being." He said, "We'll deal with it from here." And thankfully, since that surgery, I haven't had a single epileptic fit, a single seizure. And it's gone on. The only thing I deal with now is a little bit of memory loss, and I probably question whether it's had something to do with my time dealing with epilepsy.
I want to talk about Origin, and obviously, I'm a New South Wales fan, and I'm just delighted at what I saw at Lang Park. But one of the great things was when you actually went over to the Wally Lewis, and I saw all these guys, all these clowns sitting there with this wig on, this bald wig, and I was wondering who the hell they. And then, oh my God, it's Wally Lewis. It was a hell of a tribute, wasn't
it? Yeah, in one way, I probably would have felt better had they had a little bit more hair attached to those bald wings. In my playing days, I had some hair, but it was quite comical. I got the chance to go and see them. A lot of them made the trip from a long way away to be involved in that game and take part in it and put those masks on with the bald head and the moustache. And the wonderful thing was that they raised a whole lot of money on that occasion. It was quite extraordinary. They got $12,000 instantly on that night, which was given to Epilepsy Queensland for the time they were in those masks, and you just got to say a very big thank you to those guys who went a long way to dress up and in those bald wings and jerseys and stand around in the fairly cold. There was 368 of the guys.
Yeah, that's just great.
Dressed
that's
up in the
great.
Wally's
That's
costumes.
great. That's great. It just says what you mean to people. You're the king. Wally, is there anything at all in your playing career that you wished you had done? Because you've won everything, achieved everything. Is there even one thing that you thought I would have liked to have done that as well?
Probably been able to achieve premiership in the it's now known as the NRL competition. When the Broncos were first introduced into the big time in 1988, we were sort of on the edge of the finals. Just quite didn't make. Well, we made it in my third year in 1990, but we were knocked out, and it was. I think I went away from that occasion with loser's limp. I wasn't happy with that, and I left the Broncos, headed down to the Gold Coast, and a couple of years later, I had the thrill of going back to watch the Broncos after I'd retired. When the Broncos won their first premiership under the guidance of Alan Langer, who had a wonderful series that time around. So it would have been nice to win a premiership, but I've been fairly successful in some of the other things that I've had, and the thrill of playing Test match football and coming up against some of the Kiwi greats, and if I've got to say a massive thank you to one man, and I always care for him, it's Graham Lowe, the former New Zealand Rugby League coach, who is one of the nicest blokes you'll ever get to meet in your time on the planet. He's a wonderful man and has had some issues himself health-wise, and he's remained a lifelong friend for a long, long time.
Wally Lewis is with us. Wally, what was it about you? What was it about your self-belief and your will to win that you expected to win every game, that you thought you could win every game? It didn't matter what the odds were. It didn't matter what it was. You always went out there knowing and thinking that you could change the game and actually win that game. Was that something that was always in you, or did you develop that over time?
Oh, I think you learn as you go, but I had the wonderful opportunity of being taught by my dad. My dad played first grade footy in Brisbane for a couple of clubs, and he then went on to coach first grade at Winner Manly, the club that I later went to. And every time that he used to come home in football season, I'm sure he regards me as the biggest pest in the family. He'd come home and it'd be on dark just as he'd arrived home, and I used to get him to teach me all the new skills to the game. One time it was tackling with the left shoulder. Other times it was being involved in being able to pass, and he always used to work on the weak sides, getting me to pass from left to right rather than everybody that's a normal right-hander. We love to be able to throw a pass as long as we possibly can with the right hand to the left-hand side, but he always used to work on the other way, on the weaker sides, and he said to me that you've got to perfect the weaknesses in your game rather than further strength the good points. And he was a wonderful guy, gave me great support, as did my mum, but I still remember the first time I got to play for Australia against France. It was at the Sydney Cricket Ground in 1981. And I was standing out in front of the grandstands, and they started to play the national anthems. And I looked up into the stands. I was the only Queenslander in the side, and I could see my father, and he appeared to be wiping the hand away from his eyes, and I asked him later on. He said, "Oh no, it was just the dust.
Just
it was
the
just the dust flying around."
That's all it was. Yeah.
And my mum rolled her eyes, and she said he was bawling his eyes out.
Oh,
that was the
what a
proudest
beautiful
day
story.
of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I got to
fantastic
thank them. They were wonderful people.